What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to make another fighting game roster and I wanted to do something a little bit different. Everyone talks about how they should make a fighting game roster based on horror movies or Halloween characters. It makes sense, obviously. These characters are usually akin to fighting people, even if it's not someone on their own power level, and it would be cool to see them in a fighting game. This has been proven many times with characters like Jason Voorhees in Mortal Kombat and whatever else they may appear in. However, I want to try and make a roster out of a different holiday, that obviously being Christmas. Now, the idea of a Christmas fighting game sounds kind of odd at first, but I think I found a way to make it not only family friendly and fun, but still reverent to the holiday itself. First, I want to talk about how this game would play. I would imagine it playing similar to something like Smash Brothers for the Nintendo Switch. It'd be something like a platform fighter. Those games like Smash Brothers, Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl, and Multiverses usually take characters that are more cartoony and fit them into fighting games better than ones like Street Fighter. In your average one-on-one 2D fighting game, most characters are similarly shaped and sized. They almost always look like an average human as far as the proportions and things like that goes. And this is obviously because of how hitboxes work in those games. However, in platform fighters, the size of characters and their overall shape doesn't matter at all. We've seen many times that you can just take just about any character and put them in Smash Bros. And make it work. It's perfectly fine. So I think that the best way to do it is it would keep more family friendly in the gameplay style. There's nothing wrong or non-family friendly with an average 2D fighter, but I would imagine this being a family friendly game. So Smash Brothers games usually allow you to play with 4 to 8 people at once, whereas 2D fighters can only allow you to do 2 people at once. I also wanted to touch on how the visuals would look. I think it would be cool if they made it in the style of those old Dr. Seuss cartoons. I'm mainly thinking about how the Grinch Stole Christmas old art style. You could also go with the more stop motion look, and that would be fine. I think a lot of the more human-like characters would look out of place in that art style. It would kind of be hard to capture the likeness of Tim Allen in a claymation style. Now we'll talk about what I think the roster size would be. I think a base roster of 20 fighters with 1 pack of DLC with 6 characters sounds good. This is similar to how Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl 2's roster size was. I definitely feel like if this was made, it would really be a one and done situation, go all out on the first try. Now I want to talk about who is eligible for this game. I gave myself the parameters of anyone that is in a Christmas movie, TV show, or a short. Shorts are usually the type of things that fighting games don't take into a lot of consideration. They usually stick to movies and TV. However, some of the most famous Christmas characters center around Christmas shorts that are either about an hour-long Christmas specials or even shorter. So I think it's only fair to include them here. I also will not be including any characters from franchises that are meant to teach children about the Christmas story and the Bible overall. I also won't be taking anyone from the Bible. I feel like it would be irreverent to include any of those people, and none of the characters from those movies would be any use in the fighting game anyways. You're not going to see Bob and Larry squaring it off with Jack Skellington in here. One thing I will say is that I have not seen all of these movies on this list. I just know that they're beloved classics and their characters would be fun to see in a fighting game. I did not have time to watch every single movie on this list, but I did skim some information about the movies, so I should know enough to put them on this roster. Their movesets are not going to be that deep, so I don't think it's that big a deal. I'm sure someone in the comments below will let me know whether or not most of these choices are good or not anyways. And of course, I welcome that, and I have no objection to it. So, let's get started. First off, we obviously have to start off with the original Santa Claus, or at least the most straightforward version of Santa, played by Tim Allen. He would be our all-rounder type character that is very balanced. You're going to have a lot of moves that revolve around his magical bag. He can swing it around for attacks, be lifted into the air, and trap the enemies on it. I also think he could have a lot of help in the front of his elves. I also think he could have a lot of help from his elves and his family. Out of the 3 Santa Claus that I've picked to put on the list, he'd be the one that would work with his family and the elves the most. His super move could be him using the snow globe from the 3rd movie to reverse time and gain like 80 health back or something. Just so you know, In Smash Brothers type games, your health bar goes up from 0 to around 300 or whatever, and makes you easier to launch out of the arena. I didn't mention this before, but I also think that each character should get a stage as well. It's just something to add to the more festive atmosphere. For his, I think I'll go with the North Pole. Out of every character I put on this list, his is the most festive and vibrant one of all the North Poles, I think. Next, we have the Santa Claus from the Rise of the Guardians movie. Now, I know that this is not a traditional Christmas movie, but I think it's more of a celebration of all holidays, at least the major ones, more than it is a specific one in general. Also, aside from the one we have coming up next, this Santa Claus is probably the most capable as an actual fighter. He's shown throughout the movie to have really good abilities when fighting and carries around dual swashbuckling blades. I know it's insane for a Santa Claus to have swashbuckling swords, but I promise it's way cooler in the movie. His swords remind me a lot of the ones that Nightcrawler uses in X-Men 97. He could use moves like his swords, the snow globes that he uses as portals, and you give him the ability to craft things out of ice sculptures like he does in the workshop. A super move would show him getting assistance from the other Guardians to do one super move similar to those done by the Fire Emblem characters in Smash Brothers. For a stage, I think we'll go with the town that his version of Jack Frost is from. You give the whole thing ice physics when you run on the frozen pond, and you could jump up telephone poles and things like that. Next, we have a pretty weird Santa Claus and the one from Violent Night. This was the 2022 action comedy Christmas movie where David Harbour played Santa Claus and beat up a bunch of bad guys. If you have not seen this movie, go watch it if you're old enough. It's absolutely insanely crazy, and the backstory of this character is ludicrous. Spoilers for the next 30 seconds or so, but the decision of who gets to be Santa in this story seemed to be similar to the one in The Santa Claus, where you put on the coat or something like that and you're chosen. For whatever reason, the person in charge of choosing a Santa chose to bestow his powers upon a Viking warlord with an unimaginable kill count.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
The idea is so crazy it almost seems like a parody of the Tim Allen Santa Claus movies. Anyways, as for this moveset, I think he would be our tank for this game. He's similar to John Wick in the movies where he just keeps getting beat up and keeps getting back up to fight again. He could pull out random objects from his bag, and there's like a 10% chance that he pulls out something crazy like TNT. You could give him a grab where he puts a grenade in the opponent's hands. And he would even have a move similar to Bowser Jr. where he drives the tree cutter across the stage. Also, all of his normal attacks use his famous hammer, the Skull Crusher. Finally, for his super move, it can show him grabbing the opponent and flying up into a chimney like he does to the bad guy at the end of the movie, or throwing them back down as the fireplace explodes. There obviously wouldn't be any blood in this sequence, but it would still be more over the top and crazy than the rest of the supers in this game. As for stage, I think it would be cool if it was the mansion where he gets trapped in for the movie. Next, we have The Grinch, and I think this was going to be a little bit controversial because I'm going with the Illumination version. The reason for this is because in the movie, he uses tons of different gadgets and weapons and things like that make him much more of a capable fighter and things like that than the Jim Carrey version or the original. He has things like throwing stars, extendable candy cane hooks, and reindeer horns these are things that make him much more of a formidable opponent if it were necessary than the other two versions. You could even give him a move where he could control his dog Max as he flies around the stage like a helicopter. I also think that using the stage of his version of Whoville would be cooler than the other versions because it's not only much more vibrant and colorful, but you also have all of the other crazy contraptions from Dr. Seuss books around the stage. For a super move, you can show him dropping the 3 times bigger Christmas tree onto the stage as he hacks into the residents' helicopters and drops it on the opponent. Next, we have my personal favorite Christmas movie in Clark Griswold from National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. He'd be a character that would have a lot of attacks that would chain together and link together very well. You give him a meter that gives him more and more excited or obsessed with Christmas as it gets closer, similar to how he gets even crazier as the movie goes on, before he eventually blows up and goes on a rant about his boss. He could use weapons like his chainsaw, the RV, and his Christmas lights. His super move could show him locking several opponents into a cutscene where he ties them down to his house covered in light before he ignites it as it shocks them before the house blows up as he blows the fuse in his city. I think while it seems kind of odd, you could have his RV be the stage because it would take him throughout the entirety of the events of the movie as it drives around the town. Next, we have Buddy the Elf, and he'd be a zoner type character. We have tons of projectiles like snowballs, Legos, and the buildings in the store. And he could even lasso the opponent with those decorations in his house. You could also give him a mechanic where he can build a toy, but it progressively gets more dangerous as it goes, similar to the mechanic that they gave Captain Cold in Injustice 2. His super moves could show him spreading Christmas cheer by singing loud for all to hear as he rides across the stage on Santa's sleigh, hitting anyone in his way. The stage would definitely have to be Central Park in New York City. I could see him fighting similar to something like the Joker did in Multiverses and switch out all of his clown weapons for Christmas toys if you wanted to. Next, we have a setup character in Kevin McAllister. Obviously, he would use tons of traps like the blowtorch, the paint cans, and the electric sink. His normal moves could also be projectiles like bricks, and the only actual creative tool in the other movies being the pool ball launcher from the most recent movie. His super move could show him grabbing the opponents and throwing them into his house, where all the traps go off at once before the house eventually explodes. However, I don't think he should use the BB gun for his move. The reason for that is because there's someone coming up next who is much more famous for a BB gun. Kevin's stage would have to be his house. He could have tons of stage hazards and have multiple layers, similar to the Miitopia stage in Smash Bros. Ultimate. Next, we have Ralphie from A Christmas Story. He would kind of be a mixture between a zoner and a trap character. He could obviously use his BB gun for zoning attacks. We could also use the frozen pole that he gets his friend stuck on as a trap, or some kind of parry. I also think you'd give him the leg lamp as an attack, where he can swing it several times. His super move could be similar to Sonic in Smash Bros., where he shoots his BB gun and flies all around the stage. But it could do like 5% damage to himself because he'll shoot his eye out. I think that Ralphie's stage could be the toy shop where he visits Santa, and it can have tons of slides around the stage as well. Next, we have Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I think I've come up with a pretty cool moveset for him. As we established previously with other characters, they don't have to be shaped normally in a platform fighter. There isn't really such a thing as lows, highs, or overheads, and that type of stuff to make hitboxes weird in this type of game. So I think that he'll fit fine in this game. Now I have two routes that I think he could be fun in. The first is for him to be a summon fighter, where he summons all the other claymation or stop motion type characters from the other shorts and stuff like that. Characters like the weird Drac Frost or even the Puffin and Walrus from Elf. However, what I think that would be way cooler is to be commanded the other 8 reindeer. I haven't found a great way to work in the 8 reindeer and the other movesets of Santa's other movesets, but I think that him commanding them would be a way better integration of them into this game. There are plenty of things that you can do with a normal reindeer moveset, so I think adding the ability to call on certain reindeer to give status effects on you or your enemy is way cooler. I think his stage should be the reindeer games, and you could give him the entire stage Ice Vision. His super move could be similar to Mega Man in Smash Bros., where he's assisted by all the other reindeer together to run over the opponent. Next, I wanted to get a weird character on this list, and that character is going to be Briny Shelfleet from the Arthur Christmas movie. If you don't know, Arthur Christmas is an underrated Christmas movie by Aardman, who are the guys who make those stop-motion movies like Shaun the Sheep. In that story, there's a character named Briny Shelfleet who is one of the rapping elves. He tags along with the main characters and is shown to be an extremely good fighter with things like tape, wrapping paper, and of course a bow. I wanted to pick a character that's from this movie because it's really good, but none of the characters in that movie are fighters or really even that active as a person in all the sense of inciting conflict. So she was easily the best choice. I could envision her super move being similar to Peach's for Smash Brothers. In that game, she used some kind of magic spell or whatever, put everyone to sleep, and I could envision her doing the similar thing with wrapping paper and could freeze all the opponents on stage and allow her to follow up with combos. I think her stage could be the hangar for the S1. The S1 is the fancy high-tech spaceship thing was the replacement for the old wooden sleigh in that movie. Now she was our first elf on this. Now she was our first Christmas elf that we're going to include on this list. So let's get the other two out of the way now. Next I have Wayne and Lanny from the Disney short Prep and Landing. This was a fun little series of shorts on Disney Plus and Disney Channel. I think it'd be cool to put them in this game. They could be a duo fighter where Wayne could be the aggressive bruiser while Lanny is more of a zoner. If you're wondering about the size for them and Bryony, again, it's a platform fighter and oftentimes people will change the size of characters in reality just to make them fit in this game. Canonically, Kirby is like a centimeter tall or something, while King K. Rool is like 10 feet tall. So most of the time, people don't really care about actual sizes in these games. They could use moves like the exploding ornaments to act like a flash grenade, and many other tools they use to prepare for Santa's landing. I know this one would be similar to the others, but I think the best option for their super move to show them finishing all of their tasks and laying out all the snowmen and other lights that guide Santa to the house in the shorts, where he then runs over all of the opponents. Like I said, this is similar to some other ones. I still think it would fit them the best. Their stage could be the town that's within the North Pole. This one would be different than the other North Poles because more of where they live rather than the toy shop and command center and things like that. You can even have the snowmobile looking things driving in the background. Now we have our other female fighter for the base roster in Noelle from the movie Noelle. I have never seen this movie, but the plot synopsis on Wikipedia sounds very fun. Noelle is the daughter of the current Santa, and when he goes missing, her and her brother, who is an idiot and is supposed to be the next Santa, have to scramble to deliver presents and that type of stuff while he's away. Again, I don't know much about this movie, but I need another female character on the base roster, so I think this will be fine. I'm sure there will be people in the comments letting me know moves that she would have if you wish to do so. Now I wanted to have Ebenezer Scrooge on this list to reference the classic Christmas Carol story. However, the old man that is in that story really doesn't do much, so I thought of something else. Why don't we instead include the Disney version that includes Scrooge McDuck instead? Doing this will allow us to make the more wacky side of the story and fold it into the more adventurous side of Scrooge McDuck from the DuckTales TV show. You could take a lot of moves from the old SNES game like the Pogo Stick Bounce, but you also include nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, and substitute them for the Christmas present, Christmas past, and Christmas future. You could use them similar to how Schultz uses his Monado art in Smash Brothers. Huey could be Christmas past and give you the ability to regain some health because of how cautious he is. Dewey could give you a strength boost as Christmas present because he loves action and things that happen right then and there. And you could take Louie and make him the future, as he's always obsessed with being rich in the future and a businessman and things like that. And give him the ability to give you a speed increase on your next stock of life. In most platform fighters, you get 2 or 3 lives per match. I do want to make a disclaimer here in saying that I am mostly taking their personalities from the DuckTales remake because I've never seen the original show, and the hour-long Christmas special that includes them, that I'm taking some of the inspiration from, Once Upon a Christmas, only has them in 1/3 of it, so it's pretty similar, and they act pretty similar in that too. This may seem like a convoluted way of including these characters, but I still wanted to include the classic story in here somehow. I also wanted to include Disney because they're often thought of during Christmas because of the more family-friendly image. At least before they used to start pushing the message, but you know what I mean. His super move could be him and his nephews wishing upon a star that Christmas would never end, and you would gain a life back on this. However, I didn't really say anything about how super moves would be changed in this game, So if you want to make it like the Smash meters in Smash Bros. Ultimate, you make him have to recharge it for a really long time. I think that the stage that they take from the movies is the bit from the third of the three shorts, where from Once Upon a Christmas that has the band on the stage and the Christmas tree that falls over would be cool as a stage. It could be a neat hazard that as the fight goes on, the music gets louder before the tree eventually falls over. It could act similar to the lights above the stage and the Little Mac fighting area. Now for the verse of the day. Luke 2:11 says, "For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Christ the Lord." Now, of course, we couldn't get through this entire list without including John McClane, the legend himself. I don't really care whether or not you think this is or is not a Christmas movie. I just think it's a cool idea to put a random guy in a platform fighter full of crazy magical beings and elves and things like that. It's similar to how they put Rambo in Mortal Kombat. It's just kind of fun. I will say this is the only movie where people say, I'm also okay with this and one other movie I'll include later being labeled as a Christmas movie because they're typically seen as the first movies that are labeled as Christmas movies. The only part about it that is Christmassy is that it takes place during Christmas. If you went by that logic on everything, movies like Iron Man 3, Mean Girls, and Edward Scissorhands would take place in Christmas and would also be eligible here. So you can see why people would draw the line somewhere. Anyways, I think it'd be pretty easy to make a moveset around John McClane's various adventures. His super move would show him throwing garbage and stuff out the window from that one famous shot on his stage. His stage would be the mall where it takes place and is also famous for the old PlayStation 1 shooter game. Next we have the conductor from the Polar Express. I'll admit, I've only seen this movie once. I didn't really enjoy it, but it's usually seen as a classic. I think a moveset of a conductor is just a cool idea anyway. I could see him fighting similar to Quan Chi from Mortal Kombat 1. I know that sounds weird, but hear me out. In that game, he uses tons of portals to summon limbs of a giant crab monster that he's holding in another dimension. So it could show him opening the portals that allow him to get to the North Pole or whatever it is, to pull pieces of the train onto the stage. It'd be cool because he's never actually throwing a punch or anything like that. It's all done by machines that he's just summoning. And of course, his super move would be him putting all of the characters into a portal to get run over by the Polar Express, similar to Captain Falcon's super move. His stage would also be the train, but you have the ability to walk on top of or go inside the train as well. Next we have the only franchise I'm actually going to double up on, that being Jack Frost from the Santa Claus. I wanted to include a Jack Frost on this list, but I didn't really see any other ones being interesting as this one. The one that most people know are either a little kid or an old horror movie that has a budget of about $5, so that really doesn't seem appealing in this game. That version is also too similar to Frosty the Snowman, who, spoilers, I have later on this list. So I wanted to go with this one instead. He could use various different ice attacks, but he also called out these toy soldiers from one of the movies to attack the opponent as well. His super move could be him locking the opponent into a stunned animation where they are dancing along to the big musical number. His stage could be the more commercialized version of the North Pole that we see in that movie. Another reason I wanted to put this version of Jack Frost in over any other is the personality that Martin Short gives them in that movie. Most of the other versions of Jack Frost are really boring characters, whereas this one is fun and bombastic. So I think putting this version of the character in here works much better for a fun, wacky fighting game of this type. Next we have another weird pick in Jack O'Malley and Callum Drift from Red 1. I know that nobody really loved this movie, and it really didn't make any money at the box office, but I think I enjoyed it enough. It's one of those movies where I like the world that they set up, but it needed to be more fleshed out, and with the sequel, it could be way better. Also, come on, you can't tell The Rock you can't be in a fighting game. Like, what are you doing? Anyway, there'd be another duo fighter and could have really cool mechanics centered around that. For Callum, he would have lots of grabs and even shrink and grow as he wants. But I think if we want to give Jack the size-changing weapon that is in the movie, in that movie, they were able to change toys like Hot Wheels into real versions of it. So you can make up tons of different moves centered around that. I honestly don't know what their super move would be, but if I could take a guess, it'd be something around that giant witch lady, and she could attack the stage similar to Bowser does in Smash Bros. Brawl. Their stage could be the beach area where they're fighting the snowmen. Next we have Frosty the Snowman. I think he could fight similar to what you think Clayface from DC would fight. It would be very difficult to catch him with tons of different moves where he turns his hands into different weapons, and you could also have tons of cool animations for him. Every time he reappears on the stage after losing a life, he can appear with the magic that he uses in those old shorts. There are tons of cool things you could do with him. I think his super move could be similar to Scrooge McDuck, where he can get a new life if he gathers enough snow together. His stage would be the small town that he appears in with all the kids running around. Now we have Howard Langston from the Arnold movie Jingle All the Way. I'll admit that I've never seen this movie, but I'm sure there's plenty of places that you could pull from to where you can make a full moveset out of this character. If you really needed to, you could pull a couple of Arnold references from the other movies that he's in. I'm always a big fan of referencing an actor's other media when they're put into fighting games or just games in general. So I think it would be fair enough to do that here. There's a whole genre about big, tough men having to babysit a bunch of 5-year-olds. So it would be funny to take the Christmas version of that and put that in this game. For our last fighter on the base roster, we have Krampus. Aside from Jack Frost, he's the only person I've put on this list that feels like an actual antagonistic role in a Christmas movie. So I think it'd be cool. I would assume that you would just go with the normal version, but I have not seen that, so if you wanted, you could just have him be a mixture of all the other versions of him from movies and quote-unquote real life, if you want to put it in that way. I think you could do something cool where it turns him into something much bigger, and you have to fight him differently, where he's an HP bar instead of being knocked off the stage like most other characters. After defeating him, you unlock the more normalized version of him that is actually playable and works like a normal character. Now we move on to the DLC, and I wanted to use the first 2 characters of the 6 that I've chosen to feel like the ones that kind of got left off the base roster, but I need to fill out the DLC as well. The final 4 characters are linked with Christmas for Christmas movies somehow, but you may not initially think of them as those characters being related to Christmas. First, we have Harry and Marv from Home Alone 1 and 2. I think you can make them another duo fighter, but similar to the Ice Climbers, they stick together the whole time instead of being something where they switch in and out. I think you could give them a visual mechanic similar to Tom and Jerry, how they move in Multiverses, where they're mostly just dodging attacks from Kevin McAllister and evading traps the whole time, whereas they're actually hitting the other characters. You could also give them normal attacks that revolve around the crowbars that they use. Their stage would be Duncan's toy chest from the second movie. I don't really know what their super move would be. I'm sure it could be something pretty creative. Next we have Santa Claus from the Christmas Chronicles, played by Kurt Russell. I've not seen this one either, but it seems to be getting a lot of traction from his 2 movies on Netflix, and it seems to be a pretty powerful Santa Claus. He has tons of cool abilities like the power to control the weather and do a small amount of time traveling. This could be his super move if you wanted to make it so, although I think conjuring a winter storm would be even cooler. He does a musical number in the movie, so I think giving him an outro stream that references that could be cool. Now we get on to the characters that may or may not be big parts of Christmas, but you at least have them somewhere in the back of your mind during Christmas, if that makes sense. The first of these characters is Jack Skellington from The Nightmare Before Christmas. I'm not the best when it comes to the consensus of whether or not he fits better for Christmas or Halloween, but going off the title and the description of the movie, I think it'd be best fit in this game perfectly fine. He would also be the tallest fighter in the game due to his super long limbs. For his moveset, you would have tons of different moves around his lengthiness and various different Christmas things that he brings back to his hometown. His super move would be called the Joining of Holidays or something like that, where he rains down objects that are associated with both Halloween and Christmas, like pumpkins and candy canes. His stage would be Halloween Town, obviously. Next, we have Snoopy from Charlie Brown Christmas Special. Now, I know this is kind of an odd character to include, but the Charlie Brown Christmas Special is one of the most well-known of the Christmas specials. It's actually one of the only ones that tells the actual Christmas story. And it's also not one where the plot is entirely centered around it, if that makes sense. Because of that, I feel it's fine enough to include the character here, while also being referent to the Bible. Also, you could pull tons of other different ideas and moments throughout the rest of Snoopy's appearances, and lots of other Charlie Brown cartoons. You could even take the dogfight sequences from that Sony animation movie and make that the super move. The stage would be the baseball field from that movie as well. Now we have Mariah Carey from that one music video that nobody likes, but for some reason still listens to it. I know nothing about her and know nothing about the song. I just need another female character on here, and I thought it'd be really funny to annoy the crap out of everybody for making her the best character in the game and just have that song constantly blaring in the background. I have nothing else to say here. Moving on. Finally, we have Gizmo from the Gremlins. I know a lot of people may or may not consider this a Christmas movie, but mostly the consensus online that I seem to see is that it's one of those that takes place at Christmas, is enjoyable enough for the family, at least the first one, so I tend to count it. I also think it's fair because Gizmo is a lovable enough little guy. He could be put into a Christmas movie and you wouldn't think twice of it. As far as the moveset go, we really don't need to look very far, as Multiverses put him in the game and it worked pretty well. I do wish they'd give him a Christmas costume and his super move that would be the bad gremlins breaking the fourth wall and coming out of the foreground to attack the opponents. His stage could be the same one from Multiverses as being the back of a Broadway stage or something like that. So that's my list. What do you think? Do you like the roster for a Christmas fighting game, or do you think I left some characters off? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you all next time.